Welcome back. This is Rich again, back for an exclusive YouTube video blog. Today's exclusive YouTube video blog will be about why I think game shows in the United States, why there was a game show dark period for the United States with game shows between late night from 1989 through 1999, a 10-year period. Why I have some reasons why there were not too many game shows being produced during that time period. And I will tell you about some theories about that after these messages. Don't forget to listen to Crystal's Time Machine each and every Friday and Saturday night from 9 to 11 p.m. on WCAP 980, where everybody gets it. If you can't catch show live, listen to the podcast exclusively on archive.org. Goes back to October 2015. Follow Crystal on Twitter at Crystal Amy John and Machine Crystal. Follow her on Instagram at Crystal Johnson. Follow her on Facebook, the official Crystal's Time Machine Facebook page, the official Crystal's Time Machine group page, and game show fan page. And also follow Crystal on YouTube at Crystal Johnson, and follow me on Twitter at Chewy7. Follow me on Instagram at so follow me on YouTube, 2 exclusive videos a week. And say hello to Broadway Pizza, the official sponsor of Crystal's Time Machine. And if you say the promo code Crystal's Time Machine, $2 off your meal, okay? And now on to the feature presentation. Between the years of 1989 through 1999, game shows, which were a big-time staple in daytime television and syndicated television, was in a very, very dark period. I'll tell you how it got there, and I think the reasons why I think it wasn't the greatest period to produce game shows. Background on game shows. They've been around since the day television was first started. Some of the pioneer game shows were Truth or Consequences, Cash and Carry, What's My Line, I've Got a Secret, To Tell the Truth, the original Price is Right with Bill Cullen, Beat the Clock, the $64,000 Question, and 21, among others. Game shows were in prime time in the 1950s through the 1960s with several Goodson Todman game shows. What's My Line, Beat the Clock, I've Got a Secret, To Tell the Truth, The Price is Right, Password. They were all on CBS prime time, except for The Price is Right with Bill Cullen, which was on NBC and eventually ABC. And the $64,000 Question was on CBS, and 21 was on NBC. But in the late 1950s, game shows were not being produced that much at all, because several game show producers rigged such quiz shows as the $64,000 Question and 21 to get viewership and a lot of publicity. But eventually the contestants told that they were given the questions to answer right and wrong. There was a federal investigation, and by 1960, many of the hosts and producers who rigged the game shows were basically blacklisted from Hollywood. All of the networks were reluctant to add game shows to the daytime or prime time. But some big hits in the 1960s included Hollywood Squares with Peter Marshall on NBC, Let's Make a Deal on NBC with Monty Hall, The Dating Game with Jim Lane, and the Newlywed Game on with Bob Eubanks on ABC, produced by Chuck Barris, and some quiz show called Jeopardy, hosted by Art Fleming, and the primetime panel shows like What's My Line and To Tell the Truth and I've Got a Secret were basically being aging and phased out of the CBS primetime lineup by 1967. CBS got out of the daytime game show business by 1968, showing reruns of I Love Lucy and Beverly Hillbillies and and and, and other shows for about 4 years in daytime. And well, NBC and ABC show game shows in daytime and prime time of their big hits like Hollywood Squares, Let's Make a Deal, Dating Game, and The Newlywed Game. But 1971 was a very important year for game shows. It made a comeback as the FCC gave the 7:30 time slots to local affiliates. Before 1971, prime time started at 7:30 p.m. 7 nights a week. And with these prime access spots, such game shows, Let's Make a Deal, Hollywood Squares, and others took advantage of a once a week syndicated version, and it got big time ratings. CBS re-entered the game show picture in 1972 with bringing three classic game shows. September 4th, 1972 with The Joker's Wild, Gambit, and New Price is Right with Bob Barker, which is still on today. And then the game shows continuing to reappear with big hits. The $10,000 Pyramid, eventually the $20,000 Pyramid on CBS and ABC. Match Game, 73 with Gene Rabin, and Tattletales with Bert Convy on CBS. And also Jeopardy kind of phased out in 1975, but the producer Merv Griffin had a contract with NBC for one more year. They had Wheel of Fortune, and that became a big hit. And throughout the 70s, more game show hits on the networks, including The Gong Show and Card Sharks on NBC, and Family Feud on ABC with Richard Dawson, which they had a syndicated version, which was a nighttime one, and that was a big hit. Eventually, it went to 5 nights a week. In 1978, they had Tic Tac Toe in syndication, Joker's Wild in syndication, 5 days a week. Their once a week game shows were being phased out for like the syndicated versions, and by 1980, all of the syndicated once a week game shows were 5 days a week, and game shows in the 1980s had its ups and downs period. Wheel of Fortune moved to syndication, became the biggest syndicated game show of all time, replacing Family Feud. Price is Right chugged along. There were a few bigger game shows in daytime in the 1980s that were hits, like Press Your Luck for CBS, and Sale of the Century for NBC, and Classic Concentration for NBC. By the mid to late 1980s, several networks were phasing out game shows in daytime. ABC gave it up around 1986, but they kind of tried to bring it back in 1990 with Match Game, and they were rumored to have a game show block for 2 hours. They produced pilots of a revived Gambit with Bob Eubanks and 2 other game shows that did not make air. CBS, we brought back Family Feud, and also got Wheel of Fortune from CBS, and they continued to have The Price is Right. And NBC had like Classic Concentration, Scrabble, and that was it. By 1990, it seemed like game shows in daytime were on its last legs because many affiliates for CBS and NBC preempted the game shows for syndicated programming like talk shows, and syndicated game shows were still being big hits in the 1990s with Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune and Family Feud. But some reasons why I think there was a dark period of the game shows being produced by networks and in syndication in the 1990s. One reason why is in the mid 1980s, cable networks like the USA Network and CBN, now Family Channel, showed reruns of classic game shows on the air for several hours during the daytime, and that got tremendous ratings. And the syndicators and networks try to revive those game shows, but they were not big hits at all. Another reason why game shows were not very popular to produce in the 1990s is the rise of the talk shows like Jerry Springer, Maury Povich, Jenny Jones, Oprah Winfrey, and so many others. Because when these syndicators got Oprah Winfrey to be a big hit, they thought the talk show craze would take off, and it did big time, affecting game shows. Another reason why I think game shows in the 1990s hit a very big dark period. There were no original game show hits or ideas. Many networks or syndicators would get potential pilots for game shows or game show revivals, but it did not get past the pilot stage. And by the early 90s, the only network game show on daytime was The Price is Right. As all the other networks just gave up on game shows, they threw in the towel. It's with NBC giving up on game shows in 1993 after a block of a revival of Scrabble and Caesar's Challenge did not click with audiences. And most of the game show hits in the 1990s were in the United States that were not on the network or syndication or cable, including Trivia Pursuit by Wink Martindale, which aired on the Family Channel for about 2 years. And they actually tried to produce a syndicated version of it with a pilot that was going to air in like the mid 1994, 1995. But when when they had test audiences, many of the test audience says this is just a it wouldn't fly on syndicated television. Another one was singled out at like a dating type game show on MTV, Debt with Wink Martindale, and Win Bernstein's Money on Comedy Central. Those were the only big game show hits in the 1990s were, it would consider hits besides Price is Right, Wheel of Fortune, and Jeopardy. And game shows on network primetime television during the 1970s and 80s and most of the 90s were basically non-existent, unless if it was a Family Feud special on ABC, some Price is Right specials on CBS, and maybe an odd game show here and there in the summer months. But the dark period of the game shows ended around 1999 with a big hit, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, on ABC. And it was very, very rough for game show fans in the 1990s to get, more game shows. A lot of experts were saying that the game show genre was almost dead in the 90s. And, they should have, given some of these cable game shows a chance to be in syndication in the 90s. But the syndicators just wanted more talk shows, more talk shows, more talk shows. Could you imagine if, like, Trivia Pursuit or Singled Out or Debt or Once Ben Stein's Money went into syndication? Could have been with the right people who could have said, give this a chance, it would work. Maybe they would have been major hits on syndication, or maybe they could have gotten prime time spots on the networks in the 2000s. We will never know. That's about it on that. Be back with another exclusive YouTube video blog later on soon. Bye now.